every year it gets to about September, and Tav will shoot out a message in the group chat. He'll text the compound, and he'll say to the compound, "I'm feeling good about Syracuse basketball this year." And it really doesn't matter what is about to happen with Syracuse basketball. We are receiving that text. And the best part about getting that text for me is I know that by the time he gives me that in late September, early October, and when the season starts, he is going to have fed me enough information to have me in lockstep ready to
Correct.
go with him. So now I'm going to appreciate the fact that I'm not going to be the only one that you're going to coach through why Syracuse basketball is about to be sick again.
They call me Captain Buy-in. I am Mr. Bought-in every year.
You're watching Domed in Cuse, the quick hit podcast for real Orange fans. If you love Cuse sports, hit like and subscribe.
Let's talk some hoops, brother.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get the vibes up.
This is what we do as the Syracuse fan base. This is what we know how to do. It turns to October, November, basketball season.
I'm also relying on you because, as we know, you are my irrational confidence guy. You're my J.R. Smith when it comes to Syracuse basketball. Every year, just so you know a little bit about Tab and I's relationship, every year I'm coming into the season. I'm definitely a little more pessimistic on the basketball side, more optimistic on the football side, and Tab's kind of the yin to my yang on that. So every year it gets to about September, and Tab will shoot out a message in the group chat. He'll text the compound, and he'll say to the compound, "I'm feeling good about Syracuse basketball this year." And it really doesn't matter what is about to happen with Syracuse basketball. We are receiving that text. And the best part about getting that text for me is I know that by the time he gives me that in late September, early October, and when the season starts, he is going to have fed me enough information to have me in lockstep ready to
Correct.
go with him. So now I'm going to appreciate the fact that I'm not going to be the only one that you're going to coach through why Syracuse basketball is about to be sick again.
They call me Captain Buy-in. I am Mr. Bought-in every year. I will say there's one exception to that year. That was when we trotted out like the all-white starting lineup. That year I was negative on as soon as the spring ended. I'm actually really excited for this team this year. I think this is frankly, probably the most exciting group of talent we have had. I mean, easily 2021, since 2021. It's not even close. Probably even maybe prior to that. We have a legit starting five of established Power Five players, and then you've got a rotation of guys that we'll get into here. But
And some youth, right? I mean, I think that's some of the exciting stuff, especially when you talk about some of the freshmen we got coming in who we'll talk about, and then, also some of the guys that we have transferring in. So it's youth, it's new guys, it's exciting.
it is, dude. And I think there's just going to be stability in a way with just our roster this year that just we have not seen in a couple of years. And so we'll get into that. I'm not sure where we want to start. If we want to kind of start with highlighting just some of our
Well,
kind
let's
of
just
big
start
name
with
newcomers with wherever
well,
we
let's
want.
just start with like a high level before we touch on players. How do we think it's going to look different as a team? Because I think one of the things that I've kind of seen from some of the videos is it's definitely one of the more athletic teams I think we've had at Syracuse in a while.
Oh, easily, dude. I mean, that's again, that was kind of the half joke I was making. I mean, there was a year where we were trotting out Cole Swider and Jimmy Boeheim as our forwards in a 2-3 zone, right? That is not Syracuse basketball. Certainly wasn't through the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s. We were long, we were athletic, we were big, positional size everywhere, right? That's a theme. That was one of the first things Red talked about at Media Day. We are big everywhere right now. Yeah, William Kyle may not be a 7-2 guy at center, but vertically, he's going to be able to block shots. He's a vertical rim defender, lob threat on offense. Everywhere else, though, is size. Nate George, big point guard, 6'3", 6'4". Got Donnie, Sadiq's going to play a 3-4 at the wing there. Even like Luke Fennell, Tyler Betsy, like these are big kids at their size that we'll get into. Like we are a much bigger, much more athletic roster than we were last year.
And the other thing that I think plays into that too, that you were kind of alluding to was, not only are we bigger, but in some of the stuff where we might not be as big, we're kind of making up for with good energy too, right? So it's like we're bigger, we're more athletic, and we should be kind of much higher energy this year, right? Which should help guys also feed off that. I think Kyle's definitely going to be a bigger energy guy for us. I think Kings and Nate, they also run a lot better than some of the guys we've had in the past. Some of the freshmen we're bringing in, you're talking about Fennell, you're talking about Kiyan, you're talking about Sadiq. They're all guys who can move a little bit, right? So we're definitely going to have a little bit more high energy. And one of the other things that Red was really talking about is, and I know this sounds silly, but I'm a big believer in this in basketball, is he said we literally have a bench coach who is like coaching guys on how to act on the bench, getting hyped, making sure guys are not getting too hyped, but make sure guys are into the game. I can't remember in the past 5 years when we've had a bench that's like really into the game. And we used to have that all the time in the past. Like I think about a guy like James Sutherland, who was there when we were there. He ended up becoming a starter at one point, but when he was first on the bench, like he was a hype guy on the bench. And we need more guys like that.
Totally. I mean, you talk about body language on the football team. Our basketball bench energy has been the worst you can imagine the last few years. I mean, cough, cough, Chris Bell, Benny Williams. I mean, the Pout brothers on the bench over there. Like, seriously.
That's a great name for them.
From this page on this roster, like, this is like a group of kids, though, I think as well, who like they're talented enough to play at this level, and they value this opportunity to play at Syracuse, right? Like those are two huge things that I think have been missing from the program the last 3 to 4 years. And like, I think we finally got the right mix of kids. This will be interesting, right? Like this is the Red Autry era, right? Like he either performs this year
Make or break.
It's over, right? Like, the university does not want to fire him, right? Like we are influxed at the athletic department. Like we are hiring a new chancellor. It would be a lot easier for the school to not have to do this right now.
Let's be clear. We don't want to fire him. We really want Red to work out. We think Red is an awesome story. Guy who played here, guy who loves the school, guy who stayed around. He coached with Boeheim. He played for Boeheim. Like he has that Syracuse magic, that Syracuse ties that I think we both view for this job as very important, right? Like it's one of the reasons we like Hopkins. It's one of the reasons people like McNamara. We want somebody who played here. We want somebody who coached here. We want somebody who's part of that Syracuse family. And so we want Red to work out. But this is totally a make or break year. So Tav, that's kind of a roundup of what we think is going to happen with this team and where we think we're different. Now let's jump into this team. Let's jump into the guys. Let's start with the starting five, or what we think is going to be a starting five. Obviously, shit's going to change. Shit could change throughout the season. I think there's a couple guys who probably could make a case to get into this five at a certain point, especially if they, show some of the promise that we believe they have, Sadiq. But let's go ahead and start with the starting five. And I think at point guard is going to be Nate, right? Like I'm pretty much we brought him in to be the starting point guard, right? And we brought him in to kind of take some of that ball handling away from JJ, who's going to start at shooting guard. And then we got Kings, who I don't know if any of you watched the ACC Media Day. Donnie was hyping him up. Donnie's like, this is the best shooter I've ever seen, right? Which is cool. So it's cool to see that. And then obviously Donnie's going to be at our 4, and we're going to round it out with Kyle. So it's a completely different, pretty much starting 5. 3 of the 5 guys weren't even here last year. And I know those guys are transfers, and I know Tav, you're definitely the one of the two of us who's a little bit more plugged into the rest of college basketball. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of these new guys.
Yeah, totally. I think like the two Nates are the exciting hauls from the transfer portal, right? Like Nate George, I think, leading that group. Like, this is fun for us. This is going to be a huge addition for the Syracuse team. This is stability at the starting point guard position that we have not seen in a long time. Like, we are maybe going back to maybe Tyler Ennis. Like, that's what we're talking about in terms of like ACC quality guard, guy who may make an all ACC team in Nate George. Like, he was maybe the best player in the ACC for 3 weeks last year. Big guard, really good feel, change of pace king. Like, that's what he is good at. Like, he is going to get guys on his hip. He's going to change pace. Really good pass rotation. Like, good at the lob, good at the pocket passes inside. Really good feel for getting guys involved. Also, nice off the bounce, has some pull up game there. Going to be interesting to see sort of how he gets our toolkit involved. Like, there are guys here, and that was sort of what Donnie and JJ were getting at too at Media Day. We've got a roster of scorers here, and Nate Kings is part of that too, as you touched on. Like, elite shooter at Oregon State, guy that Gonzaga wanted. Really interesting backstory, like kid that comes from nothing. Like, will be a fan favorite this year as some stories get written about him. There's a lot of dudes for Nate George to play around with here. Like, he's got 2 guys who average double digits coming back. He's got himself. You've got Nate Kings. You got William Kyle as a lob threat. This is a Syracuse offense and starting 5 that should be able to score at an ACC level and honestly be top half, top third ACC offense.
Yeah, so one of the things you sent me a video, and one of the things that I thought was really cool is, in some of the pre-scouting that we were doing with Nate George specifically, was he looks like a true point guard, which is something I don't think we've really had in a while. Like a true point guard who's a master of the position, a master of the offense. And one of the things I immediately noticed, which I think has been a problem for Syracuse basketball in the past couple of years, is like you in some of the games that we were watching of him is he finds a way to get himself open, especially when his teammates seem to be in like not a great position. They've picked up their dribble or they're caught on the baseline. And then he makes himself available as like an outlet, which is such a valuable thing in a point guard who seems to like understand the space of an offense and be able to move around.
I mean, which should be not that hard to accomplish at the D1 level. I mean, we had the point guard who like wanted to hide in like mole holes last year with Jaquan Carlos, and then fucking JJ last year. Just like he's not what he's good at, right? Like he's not a pure point guard. We know this at Cuse. Like, he is a natural too. He's a scorer. Frankly, I think putting playmaking on his plate, it's like some guys are just not wired to do both, right? It's just like he is good at putting the ball in the basket. He's best when he only thinks about doing that, and like having Nate come in and be the guy who can be the dominant ball handler. Not only is it going to settle our offense, it's going to honestly, I think, simplify JJ's role. It's going to make Donnie's life easier. He's going to get the ball in spots where he doesn't have to do as much. The game's just going to be a little bit easier for everybody else. And that, to your point, we just have really missed that stability at that position the last few years.
I'm hoping some of these guys free up Donnie Freeman, William Kyle at the center, and then also, giving him a little bit more spacing, Nate Kings, and then also just having a true point guard, right? And I think one of the things you said there is great, right? Like JJ isn't a natural point guard. He's more of that combo guard. And I think by not having to do all the playmaking, it might actually help him do a little bit more playmaking.
The game will get easier when he's not thinking about trying to split duties,
And I think all of that will help Donnie too. And I think that's really one of the things that, like, Donnie had some moments last year. He had some flashes where you were like, I could totally see the talent in this kid. Like the upside felt limitless at times, but getting him there felt really hard with the roster we had last year. And I'm hopeful that the guys that we kind of surround him with, especially the transfers, are going to open that game up for him.
Totally, especially on offense. I mean, honestly, it was sort of surprising last year. Like, I thought he was going to be a flipped player where he was going to be more impactful defensively as like a long kind of rim protector. That was not the case. Like, he was honestly a good offensive player last year. I don't even want to get fully into what he did defensively. Like, he was putrid on defense last year, which I think was addressed in the offseason, but
he addressed it. He addressed it at media day.
He was asked very pointedly multiple times. The Field of 68 guys kind of grilled him, and he owned up to it. And I can appreciate that. Like, I think there was maybe some body stuff last year that he needed to be in a little bit better shape, honestly. And I think he looks great this year. He looks like he's in great shape. I honestly, I liked how he sounded on the mic. He sounds very determined and focused. Like, I expect a lot from him this year. this is a big leap year for him. And if he wants to be a pro player, we got to see it this year, right? But I'm excited for Donnie and what he can bring offensively. I believe in him. Like, stretch four, he does everything that you kind of want for a modern big to do. He hits the offensive glass, he finishes inside, he stretches it out. Honestly, I thought he was good, even at times passing from like the high post at times last year when teams went zone. The defense is completely not there, though. And so that, I hope, it sounded like Red took a very specific interest in getting Donnie there this offseason. That's going to be the number one storyline for me heading into the year, is that improvement for him. Because I believe we're going to be good offensively. Defense is still a major question mark.
And I think that's one of the things too about like having Eddie Lampkin next to him last year versus having William Kyle next to him this year.
Yeah, it's probably better to not have like a guy with cinder block feet like next to the guy who's
Right.
struggling to move around as a freshman. This should be a huge.
And then instead you have a guy who's super athletic coming in, can do anything.
And we got a couple of them too, right? You're going to bring in William Kyle. You got Soiree coming in with his buddy Nate George from Georgia Tech as another long athletic big. You've also got Sadiq White, who's going to be the best athlete on the team next year. Like, this is a guy who plays with his head at the rim. It's just everywhere from an activity standpoint. Like, we have athletes and guys who are going to play at that rim level that, frankly, we didn't have last year. We haven't had for a while at the level that we were bringing in the 2010s.
So then let's do that, because you're going there now. Let's jump ahead. That's kind of the starting five. Let's jump into our rotation, right? And I think two of the guys immediately that we should headline just to start are two of the guys that Donnie spoke about, and Donnie was like, "You're sleeping a little bit on some of these guys," and Betsy is one of them, right? So let's start with Betsy. What are we getting in him?
Totally. I mean, he's like Donnie said, he's a big kid, right? Physically, he looks like a power forward player. I mean, 6'8", 6'9", 220, 225, more of a perimeter player right now, though, right? Like, he's a shooter. He wants to play on the outside. I think there's promise there, though, right? You see a body like that, like, he's more filled out than a guy like Chris Bell, right? I do think
Right.
Bell was more productive than him as a freshman. Like, that just is what it is. Like, Bell just had more opportunities at that time than Betsy did at Cincinnati. But we're talking a guy who's a top 100 recruit. I think is an interesting player. And if we can get some things to click with him, like, to be honest with you, he's a guy who's kind of in like that old school Cuse, James Sutherland, Chris Joseph sort of mold. Like, that's his physical profile. It's just a matter of if we can turn him into something there. But I like Betsy, and Donnie obviously likes him. I think they played together in the AAU circuit on that front.
That's the kind of player we haven't had, though. You're mentioning the James Sutherland type. That's the kind of player we just have not had in recent years, right? And I'm excited to kind of see that. The other big guy that we're bringing in, Soiree, right? Like, he should be, again, kind of in that William Kyle mode, which is like physically, he could do it all, right? Like, athlete wise, he could do it all. I think it's raw there, right? There's a lot of rawness to him, and what we can get out of him is going to be how much we can coach him up.
It is. The nice thing about Soiree is that he's at least played. Like, he played a lot at Georgia Tech last year, more of a function of them being hurt and thin. But he played a lot, and he's got chemistry with the point guard, which is a good thing to have. So I think he's active. He's a little bit of a spaghetti arms thing going on right now, but that is useful if deployed properly. So yeah, I think on the front line, and then you got Diawara, who may factor in. I don't know. I think he's probably looking at a red shirt there, but the other guy is Sadiq, and he's the real, I think, impact freshman this year. Like, honestly, he's a guy we're going to be excited about because he brings a trait that we have sorely needed at Syracuse, really, outside of like Malik Brown, right? Like, this is a guy who is going to excel at the dirty work. Like, he's going to be deflections, he's going to be offensive rebounds, he's going to be block shots, he's going to be steals, dunks. This is your, like, everything but put the ball in the basket guy.
I also think that this is actually the one guy that we don't have in our starting five that, as the season goes along, he has the shot, I think, to kind of change that a little bit and potentially even get into that starting five.
If you're the best defender or rebounder or just energy guy on a roster, that guy finds a way onto the floor. And I have Sadiq, I think, will be that guy. I think we're going to find is by January, Sadiq is the guy we are putting on the other team's best wing, best kind of forward-ish sort of player, and we're just going to let our athlete try and take out their best players. And I'm really excited about Sadiq. Like, this is just the sort of forward that we used to always have, right? Tyler Roberson's to Wes Johnson's to James Sutherland's to, I mean, you can name 20 of these guys, and we just don't produce them. At Euro Shaper sets, like, we don't produce these guys at the same level we used to anymore. This is the pipeline that I'm really passionate about starting again, along with the guard position, you know?
And I think if he doesn't end up being a starter, he's definitely going to end up in that closing five, right? I definitely think that that's a role where you're going to end up putting him. Let's talk about the number one wild card, I think, on the team, and a guy who a little bit boomer bust. I have high hopes for him as we go into the future, but definitely this year, it's like I think he could pop, and he could be a guy that like midway through the season, we're like, whoa, he's very good, or he could be a guy that we kind of shelve for future years, and that's Luke Fennell.
Yeah, I think Fennell's interesting, right? Like, he's a big guard who can shoot it. International flavor. It's an Alex Klein special on him, along with a few other guys like Nate King's tops in terms of analytics from a Klein perspective there.
Right.
Interesting player, right? Like, this is another positional size guy, has shown some ability in the pick and roll. I'm interested to see how that combo of him and Kiyan works over time, right? Because if that's your future, you're big at 1 and 2. If Fennell's a point guard, right? Like, if he's a point guard and you're trotting out him and Kiyan in a year or two from now at 6'6" and 6'6", I like the look of that for Syracuse in 2027, 2026, right? Like, so I agree.
That feels like back when we were at Carter Williams and Benijay,
We were just big everywhere, and especially at guard. Like, we got to the point where Boeheim wouldn't recruit little guards, So I like Fennell, and I really like the idea of him and Kiyan growing together, kind of as a pair. Both really good shooters, which is a nice thing.
I remember when Trish was our smallest guard, and he was like 6'3" and built like a brick house.
Built like a linebacker,
I mean, and then finally, the last guy who you touched a little bit on there, Kiyan. I think Kiyan, as we talked about earlier, definitely excited about what he brings from a buzz perspective to Syracuse. But I think this year, it's definitely going to be, he's kind of the last guy in the rotation, I think.
Yeah, I think we're going to see how he kind of factors in. He'll be, I think between him and Fennell, and I mean, we're going to see if Bryce Zephyr plays a little bit too. I'm skeptical on that, but if we brought him in from Montana State, it's just there's not an obvious backup point guard here for us here. Like, I think it's tough to rely on a freshman to be your backup point guard at all times. So it'll be interesting to see sort of how it's really important that we play well early in the season this year, in my opinion. Last year, the fan base immediately was hitting the panic button when we needed a final possession victory against Lemoyne in the first game of the year, and it got no better. Like, we won none of those games decisively. Like, we need to have wide margins this year. We need to let these young guys play. Like, that's such a huge thing this year. Like, against your Niagaras, your Canisius,
Binghamtons.
like, these are games where we need to be able to get Sadiq, Kiyan, Fennell, Betsy. These guys need to play 20 plus minutes in those games, and like
in blowouts,
exactly.
Right.
And like it's important this year. Like, we talk about it, and it gets brought up more in football at times. Development down your roster in basketball matters, and these guys need to play. And if they're not playing at all, and part of the reason is they're not playing is because you can't beat teams that you need to beat early in the season, it's a problem because you don't develop the talent.
Yeah.
And then you actually just don't win games either. And that obviously materializes too. But I'm excited for these guys. And I think there's just a lot to look forward to and early in the season, because we may get some looks at guys we may not see for a couple months beyond that. And it's going to be exciting for Orange fans, like you said, because there's a youth infusion here.
The other thing that you said, and this is something that I do want to touch on before we get off here, and it's just, you said we don't have an obvious backup point guard right now on the roster. And I think that's where coaching is going to be so important here, because we know we don't want JJ to have to take this primary ball handling role, but there will be lineups where he will have to, right? And I don't think it's terrible that there will be moments or minutes that he'll have to play as the primary point guard. And I think that's like pretty important thing that Red has to do here is like, how does he stagger the minutes? How does he give out his minutes? So we're talking about Sadiq being potentially our best defender, right? Our biggest disruptor. And like, how does he find a way to get Sadiq in the game if Sadiq isn't starting? I think back to when we were at school and Raheem Christmas kind of came in as this like heralded freshman, and Boeheim would like start him for like 20 seconds and yank
Totally.
him.
He did. Yeah, he totally did. He did that like you get to play to the first TV timeout and then you're kind of done for pretty much the rest of the day.
Even sometimes even before,
Literally.
like sometimes it was till the first foul.
Until he fucked up once, and then he's all right, go get him. Like send CJ to the table,
And yeah, and so it's how do you stagger your minutes here with this team and how do you get the most out of some guys? Because like you said, once you get out of that starting five, right? That starting five has some, transfers that are coming in with experience. We have Donnie and JJ, but outside of that, the team is really, really young. And how do you stagger the minutes to make the most out of some of the small minutes you might get from Kiyan, you might get from Fennel, you might get from Betsy and Soare, right? Like those guys, there might be certain matchups, certain games where they can't play a ton of minutes. And how do you stagger those minutes to still get them some reps but not put them in bad situations? And a lot of that's on coaching.
100%, dude. 100%. It'll be this is going to be, again, it is the ultimatum on the Red era. And if he can do it, great. If he can't, it's going to be moving on. But this team can't. Like, this is a tournament caliber team. We have the talent to do this. Like, you return 2 double-digit scorers and then bring in a couple really solid guys in the transfer portal and a good freshman class, like, you've got to make the tournament. It's just, there's no excuses.
I think we both agree on that. That's at the baseline, the expectation is to make the tournament. I also think another added expectation of that is like, I want to win at least a game or two in the ACC tournament too, right? Like, I know once you get to the tournament, a lot of it can be matchup and anything can happen. So like, I'm not gonna say like, oh, NCAA tournament, I want to go this far because I feel like that's really tough. But when we get to the ACC tournament, I want to be in a position where we win a game or two.
I totally agree. And I'll even, like, I take it a step further because I agree on the ACC thing. And it's sort of kind of like part of the point I'm leaning further to is like, I don't want any more fucking debacle losses. Like, we have watched these last few years of just Syracuse. How many ACC games have been non-competitive? And how, like, more in the last couple years than the 15 years prior, 20 years prior. And I'm tired of these games where we show up knowing we're not going to be competitive. And like, that needs to stop this year. This team is good enough that we shouldn't walk off the bus ready to lose to anybody. And this needs to be the year we turn the page in the Syracuse just community. Like, we cannot continue with 20, 30-point losses in conference play. It's fucking embarrassing and it's a joke. Like, that's just something I'm not okay with as a fan base.
I totally agree to that. And to add one thing to that is I think last year you saw a lot of that, what you're talking about. The year before, another thing we saw a lot of was just like blowing leads at the end of games. Like I think back to that NC State game where we were actually beating that team, and that would have been a critical game for us potentially making the tournament. We end up blowing a massive lead to that team, and that team goes on to have the kind of Cinderella run that we were almost used to at Syracuse, right? Like maybe not the best regular season, but you get in the ACC tournament, you win a bunch of games, you put yourself into the tournament, and then all of a sudden you go on a run in the tournament. Like we did that a bunch at Syracuse under the Boeheim years, and like to blow leads like that in big games, that's not something we used to do, and that's something that I want to just get rid of as well.
Let's just blow a 30-something point lead at home to a bad Notre Dame team that year. We won, but like it's just like
we blew the lead.
Sorry, and that's not what the program is. I'm tired of the program being sorry and feeling like we're just not competitive. Like, this idea that Syracuse isn't competitive is a joke, and like we can't allow that to continue. And this roster is too good for that to happen to anybody this year.